England, France, Italy, Greece, Turkey, Russia, Finland, Germany, Czech Republic, and Belgium. And I decided to go out for a walk, and nice little walk around just the local area. And I came back. Here's Jason lying down with his back up on the pile of stuff. He was all propped up nicely and looked like he couldn't possibly care less about anything. And this French guy standing over him, like, from the tone of it, all you could guess was like cussing him out in French. So I walk up to him, you know, start going through my bag and stuff. This guy, you know, taps you on the shoulder. Yeah. I don't remember what the French is for, are you American? It was something, you know, one of those basic things that I knew. He tapped me on the shoulders and he asked me if I was an American in French. And I was just like, Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Sprechen Sie Deutsch, nein? He went back down. I was just like, I'm not messing with this guy. He kept trying a few times. I'm like, go back. He finally ignored me, went back off on Jason. Finally left, and Jason just, you know, laying back here. Jason, man, what the hell? Like, what happened? Come on, man. He's like, I don't know, this guy came up to me and he started talking to me in French, and, you know, I said, sorry, I don't understand, I'm American. It's generally expected for you to know at least a little bit of French to communicate. And if you do, most people are happy to speak to you in English and help you out, or speak to you to the extent of English that they know. Everyone's different, but, you know, most people know basic, at least. And if you don't, they'll pretend like they don't speak English. I don't think they understood us quite as well as people in Europe do, because I think we're definitely more European-based than Russian-based and descended or whatever. And the language barrier and the Cold War issues and communism and everything is really sort of, we've been at odds for so long that I don't think they quite understand our culture as well as most of the rest of the world, or rest of the major developed parts of the world, and vice versa, definitely vice versa. Yeah. So that's sort of a barrier, but you could see that that's sort of beginning to fall away with the younger generations. But in Russia, it was very much, you know, if you had a way to make a connection with someone, great. It's like you're unbelievably friendly, lovely, wonderful people. And if you didn't have a reason to make a connection with someone, you know, it was just, you all didn't exist for each other. Unless you bumped into each other, and then it was just, you know, you keep going, because that's what communism does to you. Japan was difficult. It's even hard to figure out what it's okay to talk to people about there. It's just so strange, and things are so sort of layered, and all sorts of hierarchies and everything. It's bizarre. It's so fast. You stand out. That's a big thing. You stand out so much more. I mean, you can blend in Europe. Yeah, well, you don't do it there if you're white. I mean, you don't blend in. You can't kind of walk down streets kind of trying to mimic everybody else just to sort of blend in and soak up the culture. It doesn't happen. It's too obvious. And so I think it was a much more guarded feel. Much more sort of guarded, or it felt like there were more barriers placed between people. Way to make a connection with them, or a reason to make a connection with them. It's not sort of this sudden connection. It's, you have to sort of go through these layers of hierarchy or appropriateness or whatever. So you don't really end up getting close to anyone because, and again, I'm sure people are different everywhere, and obviously it changes with newer generations and younger generations, but that was sort of the overall feeling of it. So it was difficult to get close enough to anyone to really ask, because it's like, it's almost as if you didn't feel you'd earned it yet. But I think overall, generally, I think they're cool with us. I mean, that's what they seem to be. It's just kind of, they're doing their thing and not really watching us real closely. We're doing our thing, not really watching them real closely, and we're cool with each other. It's just we don't really pay much attention to each other. Yeah. My brief experience there was, you are almost practically ignored in Istanbul. You feel, or at least I felt, almost completely invisible. It was bizarre. Unless you spoke directly to someone to ask a question. Nobody spoke English. I had trouble even getting people to stop to ask questions. Or they'd stop and kind of look at me and then just keep going. Not in a mean way or anything, but just sort of an ambivalent, like, like, okay.
Was it because you were different? Or because they just don't do it?
I think it's just, is uncommon there, and it's none of the signs are, say that, and of course there's a sign somewhere, and I'm sure there are plenty of them, but none of the signs I ever saw were ever written in English or anything. I mean, there would be signs with like 10 different variation or 10 different languages of the same size. Or English would never be among them. So I think it just felt like an entirely different world. And again, not mean or not angry or not like a snotty or snooty or anything like that. Just sort of ambivalent to your presence. They kind of look at you and almost more of like a curiosity thing, like, oh, weird, kind of keep going. Very non-judgmental, which was nice. It's just sort of you kind of go invisible, and it was a very odd experience, but interesting. A lot of times people would actually, when they find out you're American, directly ask you, basically, what's the deal with Bush? The honest opinions I got, or told that were honest, were like, we just don't understand. It's like you guys are doing these bizarre things that's like pissing a lot of people off, and I mean, we don't think you're that stupid. It's like we just don't get what's going on. We don't get why you guys are doing this. And they basically, the people I talked to basically viewed us as, I would hope we would view most anyone else, just a whole bunch of people. You don't blame the people in Myanmar for the actions of the junta, like generally speaking. You think probably most of the people in Myanmar are people doing their thing, and it's this military junta that sees control, and what are they going to do about it? They have tough lives already probably, and well, everyone does. That was mostly the sort of consensus that I got. We think you're cool people, we're fine with you. We just don't get why your country's pissing everyone off, and why you guys aren't doing more about it. And had lots of discussions about, well, a lot of people are trying to do things about it, but the problem is, I'd explain to them a bit about, when you come from most other countries in the world, again, not all, but most, you're probably coming from a country which has a less population, or less numbers, a less diverse population, and just a smaller geographical area. I mean, the United States is huge. We have so many ridiculous different kinds of people. And yeah, I mean, getting anyone to agree on anything is hell.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't think they're really generally used to that. And of course, every country has its clashes and its parties and its people who get angry at other people. And yeah, I was just listening to a talk about it at one point. I mean, these people were at each other's throats. But again, a country that size, when you look at it, you're compared to in perspective to our country. I mean, it's tiny.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with this many people in this big a place, I just don't think. Basically found that most people I talked to just like they never really thought about that. They never really, because they don't live like that, and most of them would actually sort of concede like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. It's like, you're all doing your thing, you're kind of trying, but when you got that much stuff going on, that much bureaucracy, that much blah blah blah, all this sort of, it's like, what, how much can you do? I think we're viewed as being naive, honestly. And again, not all of us. Most people I talk to are like, oh, I mean, America's huge, and I know there's lots of smart people, lots of dumb people, they understand that. But I think overall, I think we're viewed kindly, generally, but as a bit naive and a bit sort of shut off.
Yeah.
And I think part of that's because we're not sort of attached to so many other countries, like most other countries in the world are, surrounded by all sorts of, even Russia, that's so big as it is, all along its borders are all sorts of different other different countries and all. So we're a bit cut off that way. We don't have that sort of physical interaction or geographical interaction.